Okay, so recently I made a video called Galadriel is not a Mary Sue. And this was in response to a rising chorus of, frankly, idiotic voices claiming that Galadriel, one of the most powerful characters in all of Tolkien's lore, is a Mary Sue in the Rings of Power. This seems to be justified by the fact that she is a warrior and not just a magic user. But it seems pretty clear from Tolkien's writing that she was a lot of different things. She was powerful in magic, but also a powerful warrior. She had fought in the wars against Morgoth in the First Age. And having been around by the time Rings of Power takes place, for thousands of years, one imagines she's picked up, skills outside of just spell casting. Much like, Gandalf, a wizard, also goes around wielding a sword and fighting. So, some of the other reasons people have called her a Mary Sue is that she fought that ice troll, single-handedly killed it. I mean, that would be a breeze for Galadriel in Tolkien's writing. It's said in the Lord of the Rings that even that all of Sauron's forces would not attack Lothlorien because she's there, including all the Nazgul. The only way that they would ever do that is if Sauron was with them and had the power of the ring. So this idea that she's overpowered is frankly ridiculous, and this idea that she's a Mary Sue because she's good with a sword is equally ridiculous. But let's talk a little bit about what exactly a Mary Sue is, because some comments with literally almost no basis in argument whatsoever, but some comments claim that I don't know what a Mary Sue is. I would argue that the people saying Galadriel's a Mary Sue don't know what the fuck a Mary Sue is, but I think a lot of people in general don't know what a Mary Sue is. So, basically, the term Mary Sue stems from a parody short story written as a satire of fan fiction in the 70s. A lot of fan fiction in the 70s was kind of the origin of fan fiction really was often Star Trek related. And this woman, what's her name? Paula Smith. Paula Smith wrote a very short story as a parody of all this fan fiction, and she had noticed that there was a similarity in a lot of these stories. There was usually a young girl, like a teenage girl, who would show up as some member of Starfleet, and she'd be the youngest person to ever do the job. She would always do it superbly well, and everyone would fall in love with her. Often she would then die a tragic death of some sort. It changed a little from story to story, but there was a basic template here. And the idea was that, these people, these writers, amateur writers, were taking themselves, putting themselves into the story and making themselves more powerful or exotic, more desirable, and so forth. Almost always, these stories included a fictional protagonist that was not part of canon, not part of Star Trek. This fictional protagonist was inserted into Star Trek with characters like Captain Kirk and Spock. Everyone would fall in love with the fictional character, or this non-canonical Mary Sue. Everyone would fall in love with them. They would be the center of the story, right? So, this was fan fiction, but mainly it was like, I wish I was in Star Trek. This is what I would be. I wouldn't be this boring, ugly person in real life. I would be this beautiful, desirable person in space where, these handsome men fall in love with me. She wrote this story, and I just think I'll read the whole thing because it's super short. So, here it goes. Gee, golly gosh, Goryoski, thought Mary Sue as she stepped on the bridge of the Enterprise. The name of the main character in this parody was Mary Sue, and that's why the term Mary Sue caught on over the years. Here I am, the youngest lieutenant in the fleet, only 15 and a half years old. Captain Kirk came up to her. Oh, Lieutenant, I love you madly. Will you come to bed with me? Captain, I am not that kind of girl. You're right, and I respect you for it. Here, take over the ship for a minute while I go get some coffee for us. Mr. Spock came onto the bridge. What are you doing in the command seat, Lieutenant? The captain told me to. Flawlessly logical. I admire your mind. Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, and Mr. Scott beamed down with Lieutenant Mary Sue to Rigel 37. They were attacked by green androids and thrown into prison. In a moment of weakness, Lieutenant Mary Sue revealed to Mr. Spock that she, too, was half Vulcan. That's often a trope that these people have secret, special identities, like being half Vulcan. Recovering quickly, she sprung the lock with her hairpin, and they all got away back to the ship. But back on board, Dr. McCoy and Lieutenant Mary Sue found out that the men who had beamed down were seriously stricken by the jumping cold Robbies, Mary Sue less so. While the 4 officers languished in sickbay, Lieutenant Mary Sue ran the ship, and ran it so well she received the Nobel Peace Prize, the Vulcan Order of Gallantry, and the Tralfamadorian Order of Good Guyhood. However, the disease finally got to her, and she fell fatally ill. In the sick bay, as she breathed her last, she was surrounded by Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, and Mr. Scott, all weeping unashamedly at the loss of her beautiful youth and youthful beauty, intelligence, capability, and all-around niceness. Even to this day, her birthday is a national holiday of the Enterprise. National holiday of the... So as you can see, a Mary Sue, the term comes from this very short story, and refers to someone who is unreasonably good at everything, is often an insert of the author's fantasy about themselves. Everyone loves them. They achieve everything flawlessly. They are often complimented and built up by the characters around them. They don't struggle with anything, although sometimes they tragically die and become some kind of martyr or legend, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, men can also be Mary Sues, but I think that this was born out of a trend where it was often these young girls. But certainly then this has left the realm of fan fiction and been applied especially to female characters quite often throughout, the intervening decades. So we saw this in the Star Wars, the new Star Wars trilogy, where Rey was described as a Mary Sue, which I think was half true. I think that Rey had some Mary Sue-ish qualities, but I think that was more just that trilogy was not very well thought out, and that she wasn't given enough of a backstory, enough of a struggle, and that yes, she was definitely. Rey was definitely presented as kind of this awesome, amazing character who everybody loved. So there's some truth to Rey being a Mary Sue. I just don't think she's a very strong example of Mary Sue. Because, I don't know. I mean, there were just so many problems with those movies. It's a lot harder to pick out just this one. You could just say this is overall poor storytelling going on in those movies. But she was, in some ways, like a fanfic character inserted into this movie with all these canonical characters like, Luke Skywalker and so forth. And ended up being super powerful, blah, 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 blah. But Galadriel is a different beast, because Galadriel is not a new character. She is not inserted into a story and surrounded by canonical characters who she then shows up. She is an established, powerful character who by the Second Age was already one of the oldest and most respected elves in all of Middle-earth. One of the only elves in Middle-earth that was born in Valinor, lived through the First Age, fought against Morgoth, and went on to, hunt Sauron, build up her own kingdom, and a lot of, like Lothlorien, it eventually becomes basically her kingdom. And I don't think you can say that she is now a Mary Sue because in this story she is a warrior. I mean, for one thing, not everybody is drooling over her, right? Like Elrond is her friend, but Gil-galad doesn't seem too happy about her. Her companions mutiny because they don't like her leadership and where she's taking them. And she's just, she's not. There's nothing about the Mary Sue that fits the bill for her. You can say, okay, I don't like the casting. I don't like this version of Galadriel. I don't think that this is true, or it doesn't fit my headcanon of who Galadriel is. She doesn't, maybe she's not what I pictured, given what I pictured from not just Peter Jackson's movies, but from the Lord of the Rings itself. And all of those criticisms are totally fair. I think they've got a long ways to go with Galadriel. I think they've made some lore changes that I don't love. I think that the actor who plays Galadriel is too short. But I also think we've only seen 2 episodes, and let's see where this character goes. This actor takes her, the writing, the story take her. But fundamentally, I think that the argument that she is a Mary Sue is very, very weak. And I think that the concept of Mary Sue, again, which we read the origin story itself, the concept of Mary Sue has been twisted and diluted and taken in wholly different directions to where it doesn't really even apply anymore. And instead of, I think it functions as a shorthand for I don't like this thing, instead of making an actual case. And that's why you see people in YouTube comments saying, she's a Mary Sue, or, woke trash, because they don't have an actual argument that they can articulate. Now, some people do. I don't always agree with them, but I appreciate comments that are well articulated. Sometimes I think that you can still be smart and very wrong, but at least you're trying. But a lot of these comments, you know, she's a Mary Sue, and then it's just like, that's it. Okay, that's it. Or there will be people show up on my last video saying, you don't know what a Mary Sue is. I do know what a Mary Sue is, but Galadriel doesn't fit it in any way. You know, and I talked about this with Elon Musk saying she's the only one who's smart, brave, or nice. I mean, she's not particularly nice, and she's not fawned over by everyone around her. And there are other smart, brave, and nice characters in the show. I mean, she has to be rescued. I keep saying that. She was rescued from dying by a human, man, white. As far as I can tell, a white, cis, male man saved our Mary Sue protagonist. That doesn't really fit. Anyways, that's all. Now you know what a Mary Sue is, and now you know why it's so stupid that people are calling Galadriel one. And I think we need more original arguments. I think that this use of the term Mary Sue has outworn its welcome for the most part. No serious movies or shows are really including full-blown Mary Sues anymore. But there's no doubt that a lot of bad writing goes on in Hollywood. You know, again, She-Hulk, we're just a few episodes in, but that show has done a terrible job drawing the lead character, and has pretty much relied on making the men around her look bad. That's a great example of where a female character is being propped up by making the men around her look bad. Galadriel, on the other hand, the men around her don't look bad. I mean, except for maybe the one elf that wanted to go back to Lindon rather than keep going north. But really, I don't know. Like, if you'd been chasing a ghost for hundreds of years and you were freezing your ass off, you might want to go home too. And I think that says just as much about her ability to lead as anything. So I'm going to stop beating this dead horse now. But I just thought I would make one more video kind of explaining a little bit more about what a Mary Sue is, where it stems from, and why I just don't think Galadriel fits the bill. So thanks for watching. Peace.